Hi everyone. In this lecture, I'll be explaining a little bit about essay assignment number 1. Now, it's still really important that you read the essay assignment 1 guide. It covers absolutely everything you would want to know about the assignment, how to write it, um, basically just everything you need to know. But I wanted to say a few things about it as well. I think sometimes, for me at least, it helps to hear somebody kind of explain things. So here's a really quick overview of the assignment. I'll pull up the assignment and show it to you. I'll pull up the assignment guide here in a second and show it to you. It's also in this week's module, so if you haven't read it yet, make sure you read it thoroughly. There's a lot of information in it. Essentially, what you'll be doing for this essay is choosing one type of criticism that we've covered so far. So new criticism, reader response criticism, or deconstruction. And then in the assignment guide, there are several literary works that are options for each of those critical perspectives. So choose a critical perspective and then choose one of the options listed in the assignment guide, one of the literary works. So once you've settled on a critical perspective and a literary work, so a poem or a short story, that you're going to use, analyze the literary work from that critical perspective, just like the chapter, the relevant chapter shows you how to do, and then write a thesis statement. So do you guys know what thesis statements are? I'm assuming that you learned about this in English 101, but if you didn't, just real quickly, a thesis statement is the main idea that you want to convey in an essay. And so in an essay like this, it should be an interpretive claim about the text that you're writing about its thematic meaning. And thematic meaning is covered in some more depth in the lecture in last week's module. So your essay should end up being probably around 2 or 3 pages, double spaced. This is not including the works cited page. You don't need a title page, but it doesn't include the title page. So this is not a hard and fast guideline. This is a loose guideline. Is there a hard and fast guideline? It's not a requirement, it's a guideline. Basically, if you're doing the assignment correctly, it'll probably end up being around 2 or 3 pages. If it's less than 2 pages, that may be cause for concern because it may just mean that you haven't done the assignment thoroughly. Maybe you don't have enough body paragraphs. Maybe you don't have any paragraphs at all. Maybe you forgot to double space and didn't look at the assignment directions. Maybe you don't have an introduction or whatever. If it's more than 3 pages, I mean, that's fine. Some people just are a little more wordy. I wouldn't necessarily encourage being wordy, but if you have a more flowery writing style, I'm not expecting that a lot of you do, maybe you'll end up writing more than 3 pages, but probably, if you're doing the assignment in the way that it's explained, this is about how long it'll be. And that's why I give that length guideline, just so that you can kind of look at what you wrote and say yeah, okay, it seems like it's, got an introduction, it's got a conclusion, it's got 3 or 4 paragraphs in the middle, I double spaced it, it's 2.5 pages long, all right, looks good or whatever. So anyway, just something to shoot for. I want you to use citation in this essay, and that might sound silly because you only have one source, and that'll be the poem or the story that you're writing about. This assignment does not require research. In fact, it doesn't even permit research. So you'll only be using one source. Really, citation isn't necessary, but I want you to use it simply for the fact that I want you to go into essay 2 and essay 3 having already practiced using source citation. Because if you get to essay 2 and you've never used it before, which maybe some of you have not, or it's been a while since you used it, you've been out of school for a while, or for whatever reason it's not super familiar to you, you'll probably have a harder time. Essay 2 involves using multiple sources. Essay 3 also involves using multiple sources, and so if you go into those essays having already practiced using an academically recognized type of source citation, things will just go more smoothly. So I recommend MLA. That's usually what people use in English departments. However, if you've never used MLA, you're in the sciences, you've used, what is it called? CBE, or you're in the social sciences and you've used APA, or, you've used Chicago. You can use whatever type of citation you want as long as you use it correctly. And a really good source for source citation guidelines is the Purdue OWL. online writing lab website. I'll link that in the important documents and resources module in our Canvas classroom. Okay, so the recommended process for this essay. This isn't something I'm going to be checking up on. I mean, this is just in what order I'd recommend doing things because it makes things easier for you guys. So read the essay, number 1 assignment guide thoroughly. That kind of probably goes without saying, but make sure you read it front to end a couple of times. Make sure you know what you're doing before you try to do it. Save yourself some time. Choose a topic, come up with a thesis statement. If you try to write the essay before you have a thesis statement, you'll end up doing a lot more work than you have to, or you'll end up writing an essay that doesn't have a focus. So write your thesis statement out as a sentence, and then come up with minor claims to support your thesis statement. The essay number 1 assignment guide gives you some more information about what is meant by that term, minor claims, but essentially a minor claim is just the main idea of a body paragraph in your essay that works to support your thesis statement. So you can kind of consider an essay like this, or envision an essay like this, being a composition that works to support a thesis, and then there are several chapters in the essay, each being a body paragraph, that supports and argues and expands upon a smaller point that's part of your thesis statement. So if you think about chopping up your thesis statement into 3 or 4 parts, the main idea of each part becomes the main idea of a body paragraph, and then you find details from the text, the poem or story that you're writing about, to support each minor claim. If you think about your essay in this way, I don't want to say it writes itself, because it doesn't. I mean, you still have to write it, but it becomes a lot easier. So you start with your thesis statement as the last sentence of your introduction. You try to break it into 3 or 4 parts. Each of those parts begins a body paragraph. You find evidence from the text to support each of those minor claims that begins a body paragraph, and then you add a conclusion. It's really not that hard. So write a draft is the next step after you've kind of planned out your essay. Submit a draft for the peer review. Now, the way peer reviews work in this class is you submit a draft by the peer review deadline, and then in the middle of the night after the peer review deadline passes, say the deadline is midnight, Canvas will match you up with a peer to review their essay at 2 a.m. or whatever time I set. I usually set it at 2 a.m. to give everybody a couple extra minutes in case their draft doesn't quite make it in until 12:05 or something. They won't be locked out of the peer review. So submitting a draft for peer review is the prerequisite for doing the peer review, but it's not the peer review itself, if that makes sense. So submitting a draft is what allows you to be matched up with somebody so that you get feedback and you can leave feedback for somebody. And that feedback is due the next day by midnight. So if you check in the morning after you submit your draft, after the deadline passes, you should see somebody there whose work you're supposed to review. And if you try to find this on a phone using the Canvas app, you probably won't be able to find it. The Canvas app is pretty bare bones. It doesn't contain a lot of stuff that's necessary to complete the work in the class. So what you can do to sidestep this, if you're working on a phone, if you don't have another device, you can go into the browser, like Google, what is it? Google Chrome? That sounds wrong to me. It's not Google Chrome. Is it Google Chrome? I don't know. I'm having a brain fart, sorry. On my computer, it's Safari because I have a Mac. Anyway, whatever your browser is that you're using, you guys know what a web browser is, right? Just go into that and then put in, the information for Canvas, log into Canvas that way, and then you'll see the full Canvas site. You won't just see like the pared down app version of it. And then if you go into the assignment, the peer review assignment, you should see right under where it says you submitted something or you uploaded a draft, you should see the name of the peer that you've been assigned to review. Well, I guess you're not assigned to review the peer, you're assigned to review their work. But anyway, follow the directions in the module to review the person's draft. There is a series of questions that you need to answer. Make sure you answer them in order, number them, make things easier for me to grade your work. And then after you review your peer's work, and after you receive a peer review, you can make whatever revisions you want. I mean, you don't have to use your peer review to make revisions. You can use your own brain to make revisions. In fact, you can even use the peer review worksheet that's in the module and try to apply the questions to your own draft when you're deciding which revisions to make. You can follow the advice your peer gives you, but keep in mind your peer is your peer in the class. I mean, they might be saying what they think is true, but you get to be the one to decide, hey, am I going to follow this advice or not? It's up to you. Then make sure you don't forget to submit your final draft for me to grade. So you'll be submitting your draft 2 times, once for peer review and then once again for grading. Now I'm going to pull up the Essay 1 assignment and we'll look at it together really quick. Okay, so this is what you'll see when you open up the writing guide for Essay 1, the assignment guide for Essay 1. So the title of this assignment, this is not going to be the title of your essay, but this is the assignment title I've given what I'm asking you to do, is analysis of a literary text in isolation. And what that means is if you're using one of the types of critical perspectives that are options for this assignment, you won't be doing research. So you'll be doing new criticism, you'll be doing reader response criticism, or you'll be doing deconstruction. None of those require research, and in fact, I'd like to prevent you from doing research in this assignment. Not because research is bad, but because I want you to focus on and isolate your analytical skills, I guess. I want you to only work on being analytical and essay structure in this assignment. We'll get to research and integrating sources, multiple sources at the same time into your writing in Essay 2, but I'd like to start small and have you focus on just doing some fabulous analysis. So here are the formatting requirements, the length requirement. That's stuff that everybody asks about. I think it's important to just get that out of the way. So you see the citation requirement there, all kinds of stuff to do with having a title and a heading and everything. Here's a little paragraph just about why I'm asking you to write this essay. And then here, you're being asked to choose one of the critical approaches in chapters 3 through 5. And then here, in this paragraph, you see that each of those critical perspectives or approaches has a couple of different literary works that are options. So if you choose to do new criticism for this essay, you can write about My Father's Martial Art, On My First Son, or The Parable of the Prodigal Son. If you choose to do reader response criticism, you can write about Since There's No Help or Killing the Bear, or Did I Miss Anything? And then if you choose deconstruction, you can write about either ethics or Death Be Not Proud. So choose one of those critical perspectives, choose one of those literary works that goes along with it, and then you can start doing some pre-writing. Oh, this is important too. So you can use the questions following each of these pieces of literature in our textbook as a guide to help you analyze the piece and generate ideas for a thesis statement. Sometimes students aren't exactly sure, what kinds of questions they should be asking of their literary work or what kinds of things they should be thinking about. Maybe they understand what deconstruction is, but they're not quite sure how to start doing it. And so if you're in that position, use those questions as a springboard. Now you can start doing some pre-writing. And so read all of this stuff here that kind of explains in minute detail what I mean when I say I want your thesis statement for this essay to be an interpretive claim about thematic meaning. That's way more complicated than it sounds like. I find a lot of my students, they think theme means one thing, and then the way I'm using it in our class means something totally different. So make sure you look at that. There's a sample thesis statement here. You can't use this one for your essay, but here's a sample thesis statement related to My Father's Martial Art. And then this is some information about essay structure. And then more information about essay structure and information about how to structure a body paragraph. So body paragraphs are the paragraphs that are after your introduction and before your conclusion. In an essay of this length, you should have 3 or 4. I mean, if you have 2, it's probably not enough. If you have 5 or 6, it's probably too many. Aim for 3 or 4 really well-developed, good, solid body paragraphs, each supporting a small, excuse me, my goodness, my voice is cracking, I've got some allergies, a small piece of your thesis statement. So this explains exactly what that should look like. And then this is a little information about the conclusion of your essay. So this was just a quick walkthrough of the assignment. I hope you didn't try to actually read the whole assignment as I was scrolling through it. If so, you're probably dizzy and vomiting right now. This is the assignment. Read it thoroughly. We'll be working on it this week. We'll be working on it, kind of some smaller pieces of it. If you have any questions about this after having read it thoroughly, please don't hesitate to send me an email. Well, a Canvas message, I guess.